What's poppin', everybody? Welcome to Tom and Joey Entertainment, a.k.a. TJENT. This is Straight Gamin', where Tom and I bring not topics to the table. I'm still getting used to it. It's episode 4 of Straight Gamin', where we come here and talk all things gaming. Where we talk about
that makes sense.
I know, right? That does make sense. Where we talk about what we're playing, some topics of the show, or some stories of the week, and then our coveted topic of the show. I'm one of your hosts, Joey Prokes. Alongside is my partner in Prime. Tom, how you doing?
So, dude.
So,
pretty miserable.
yeah, Lions game was rough.
Yeah.
Needless to say.
Whatever.
Yeah.
It's fine. I'll hang myself, but it's fine.
I'm going to drown my sorrows in more gaming tonight.
Yeah, hey,
There
whatever.
we go. It's the best remedy,
It's
right?
for the views.
Yeah. It's the best remedy. So, without further ado, we're just going to swan dive right into this episode and start out with what we've been playing. I went and grabbed my phone, think it was stories, not stories. What we've been playing. Tom, you want to go first?
Yeah, Destiny 2.
All right. Oh, wow. Big surprise.
Yeah. Except now I'm into the strikes.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so what's new?
I veered from the campaign.
What's
and
new in the
strikes,
Destiny-verse?
Okay, I will say this. Strikes, I feel like you get a lot more loot with strikes.
Now, is strikes longer?
Yes.
Okay.
Wait, like now compared to the first one, or do you mean like in general?
We'll go with both then.
Okay.
So, in general first.
So there's different types of strikes where basically you just have like a main boss you have to fight, and each one is different. So some of them might be really quick, some of them might be longer, but there's also ones where you have like a mini boss and then a bigger boss. So
Nice.
I don't know. I would say that an average strike is probably a little bit longer than the average campaign mission. Most likely. I mean, I don't know for sure.
So, like half hour, 40 minutes-ish, you think?
No, not that long.
No?
Definitely not.
Okay.
It's probably pretty comparable, but it depends where you are in the campaign. The earlier missions are super fast.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah.
but on average, I'd say a strike probably a little bit longer. When you get into the big strikes and the raids and shit, then those ones, like I've heard some raids take like 3-4 hours.
I've heard this raid, the Leviathan raid, apparently that's what it's called. I've heard some people have taken like up to 8 hours and then still not beaten it.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? I can't imagine sitting down. It's like you're prepping for like a road trip or something. It's like, all right, guys, I got my hot pockets ready, I got my water, got my portable bathroom ready to go.
Yeah.
I'm ready to do this raid. That would be insane.
That's insane to me. But yeah, other than that, it's pretty much the same as the first one.
Yeah.
The little shader update, the whole we expect you to be flushed with shaders is pretty bullshit.
Yeah, I am not seeing that either because we've both reached level 20 at this point, and usually when you hit level 20, I mean, when we first got to level 20, we went and cashed all of our shit in. That was pretty nice because we just got boatloads of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, the flush of shaders thing.
You get them in packs of 5, which is nice because you have enough to like basically do your armor, but you can't do it for all your guns. Okay, whatever. But I've yet to get the same shader twice.
Really?
I'll get a shader pack, but it's always in a pack of 5, and then I won't get the same one again.
Oh, really?
And it'll just be a new one.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool because there's a billion different color combinations, but if you're super OCD, it's like fucking Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, I would imagine. And it comes to the point where one of the things that I didn't realize from that you could do in the first game, it's not like it was a new update, but that I liked is that I unlocked this sweet new auto rifle with my Crucible tokens, and I totally didn't realize the fact that you can upgrade your weapons and keep like the same weapon and then just upgrade the power.
Yeah.
Which is really nice because if you want to keep the same weapon, because in Crucible it doesn't really matter.
Right.
Because Crucible, everything's all even anyways. So as long as you like the gun and like the feel of it, like the accuracy, the rate of fire, all that stuff, it's super nice. And then if you want to take it and use it in the campaign missions or in the PvE, player versus environment missions, you can just upgrade the power and then keep the same feel while still upgrading the attack. And then obviously to go along with that, keep the same shader as well. So
yeah.
that as a caveat makes the shader problem a little bit better, but it just goes back to the fact that we talked about why change it in the first place.
Yeah, I still don't know.
It's just it's a needless update to try and be different, and that's why so many people pointed out to the point where it was so about the microtransactions, because if it was like a meaningful change that changed the foundations of the game,
right,
and it was like a new attempt of them trying to be unique and trying to change it up from the first game.
It'd be totally different.
Yeah, so that's why people get so pissed, is because this makes no sense, and the only reason why it would make sense is to make money off of microtransactions.
Right, yeah.
So yeah, but I mean, still, regardless, it's still a blast to play.
Yeah, it's super fun.
Still super fun. So what I've been playing is the new Battlefield 1 DLC. It came out earlier last week, and I remember I was at work when I figured out that it came out, because I knew it came out last week. I just wasn't sure what day. and then you were at home working on school stuff, and I remember texting you. I was like, I think it's $15. I don't even care. Just buy it and download it. So I'm ready to. So it's ready to play that night. So it's called In the Name of the Czar. And it's there's 6 maps included, but I think there's a few maps that they include as a part of the map pack that are designated for certain modes. And what
gotcha.
the mode I like to play the most is hands down Conquest. So I've been playing a shitload of that. And at first, my first impressions are the maps are really cool. And obviously the scenery and the background and everything that's around you is always so awesome. The sound effects, the gameplay, everything is sound as always because Battlefield 1. I mean, I've liked previous Call of Duties, but in terms of just the longevity of... Because the games are pretty long.
Yeah.
Usually, unless you're dominating someone, the games are about 25 to 30 minutes long. And the longevity of those games and the fact that I can play so many on top of each other, just BF1, Battlefield 1 is just a first-person shooter. It's definitely, you can make an argument for me personally that it's one of my favorite first-person shooters ever, just because of how unique and just, especially when I play with my headphones on, the sound effects are just
it's nice too that
so amazing.
I mean, it's nice to get a break from Call of Duty, but it's also nice that these games don't come out every year.
Yeah, exactly.
So you don't feel like, because with Call of Duty at some point I'm like, God damn it, I have to buy another one.
Yeah.
I just got good at this one and now another one's out.
Yeah,
so.
no shit. Yeah, the recycled concept type idea. Yeah, and that is nice because they release these big map packs. And with Conquest games, we talk about how long they are. It's because the maps are so huge and diverse.
Right.
And it's so cool because rather than have a bunch of smaller maps, you release these big, diverse, like immense, big maps to the point where there's a lot to look at and there's a lot to do. So it keeps that replay value high, even if there's not as much quantity of maps. You know what I mean? So my first impressions are the maps are really nice, really cool looking. I like the snow aspect because it's different from all the other maps that were in the game so far, but the only dig with having a snow map is that you neglect having that, I don't know, the color and kind of like the pop that you would have in the normal like BF1 maps, because I know there's one where it's called, I think it's like Verdula Heights or something like that in the They Shall Not Pass French expansion pack. That was the second one. And it's this map where there's like a forest fire going around all the map, and then there's like this middle area where the majority of people like congregate, and they have these mid-game like weather conditions that change. So it's like this big, huge fog thing will come into this map, so you can barely see like 20 feet ahead of you, and it just gets this super cool atmosphere because you get this feeling where you see the fog and you see bullets flying everywhere, grenades, bombs going off, bodies flying everywhere. And I mean, there's just no... I think that's what it comes down to when it comes to how much I love Battlefield 1 is the unscripted events that happen.
Right, yeah.
Just, I've never seen a game be a first-person shooter online multiplayer, like kind of a boilerplate in that sense, because there's a lot of first-person shooter multiplayer games.
Right.
But to have events like that and to have just the crazy shit that happens in those games is so much fun. So I would say I liked the They Shall Not Pass map pack better because I literally played that for hours on end. I could not... Like, as soon as that came out, I was like, oh, maybe that's a reason to get back into Battlefield. I look at the maps, they look pretty cool. But then I started playing it, and man, it's so much fun. But the maps are awesome, and I'm still going to continue to play them. And in a way, I like them more so than one of the ways I like them more so than the second map pack is that it kind of provides a little bit more distance, because I showed you the video clip before we got on when I was shooting, and literally I had to get the trajectory of the bullet because it would dip down because I was so far away. I had to get that down and figure out when I was hitting him and when I wasn't, because there was like a sniper from across the map. So I liked, because there's this one map where there's 3 separate islands, and in order to get between objectives and get to the different objectives, you have to like go down in these valleys and swim across like these mini rivers, and that provides a cool aspect because you get people to think they're safe going to the water and then you mow them down, or you get those long distance battles that are really cool. And I liked it in that sense because it pushed me to commit in these long range battles that in the They Shall Not Pass map packs, a lot of the battles, not a lot of them, but the majority of them are kind of close range.
Right.
So I definitely like it in that sense, how it diversifies the battle and the gameplay, that's for sure.
It's definitely one of a kind.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why... I mean, Call of Duty was planning on going back to World War II before Battlefield 1 came out, because, I mean, obviously the game was in development, but still, the idea that you can go back to a classic war like this, because even before World War II, I mean, this is World War I, so there's even less technology to work with.
Right.
The fact that you can come up with this game and put such an emphasis on graphics, feel, realism, and especially the sound effects more than anything else. It's just, like you said, it's one of a kind. And the map packs there's 2 more to come out, and I'm going to continue to get them and play the hell out of them because that game just seems to be timeless for me. And even when Call of Duty comes out, I'll still play Battlefield because there's just nothing like it.
Yeah, I mean, they're different enough that there's a reason to play each.
Yeah, and I've played like some like Call of Duty and then some Destiny and even some Halo, and I've come back to Battlefield 1, and it only takes me a few shots to like get the feel for it again.
Right.
So it's kind of nice to not, because when I always got Call of Duty and Halo, it was always so difficult to distinguish between the two because they're so different, so you just get such a feel that if you get the quickness of Call of Duty and as your instinct, then you go to Halo and just like, holy shit, I'm moving like molasses.
Yeah.
So it's definitely an awesome game. The DLC pack, I highly recommend it. And it's only $15, especially, like I said.
Not bad.
No, not at all. Especially with, like I said, the Conquest maps that they include. These maps are so huge and provide such a massive game type and game capability that when you only include these maps, it gives it to the sense of it's almost like a brand new game.
I was going to say, yeah, I mean, you're basically like buying a new Battlefield at some point.
Yeah, that's only $15.
Right, yeah.
And it's really nice because, I mean, it's definitely a small thing that it seems easy, but it's definitely nice where they provide certain playlists for the new DLC pack. So it's like if you just want to play just maps of this, come here. If you just want maps of this.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, so that was nice, especially because I just wanted to play all of In the Name of the Tsar maps at first when I first got it, so that was cool. So yeah, other than that, I mentioned what about the snow setting, because that's definitely cool because it's different, and since they went with more of the battles that had to do with the Russian army or the Soviet Union army at that time, and in the Soviet Union locations, the snow obviously makes sense, and it definitely brings a diverse environment to the point where there's these cool little creeks and rivers and stuff where they're inside the objective too, so you can get down where you can't see around you, but you're just down in these little creeks.
Pretty sick.
Yeah. So it's like every time I go up to these objectives and I know there's that river there, I kind of just like come up over the hill a little bit to make sure there's no one hiding there. So, I'm gonna be playing more and more of it. Probably go back to Destiny 2 sometime soon when I get my fix of Battlefield 1.
FIFA.
Yeah, exactly, because FIFA comes out next Friday. Way pumped about that, or this Friday, I guess, because you're watching this on Monday. But yeah, I definitely been having a blast, pun intended, with Battlefield 1, and I'm definitely going to play it more.
Yeah.
For sure. So yeah, that has been what we've been playing for the past week, and now we're going to go to our stories of the show. Only two stories of the show today, and the first one is a reference to our previous story on our previous episode when I referenced with the Super Mario 64 online mod. And I remember watching our last episode, and I wasn't sure if I made this exactly clear, so I'll just say it. When I was talking about the Super Mario 64 mod, the way I said it made it kind of sound like, at least to me, that I was saying that you could play it online via the Nintendo 64.
Right.
So what it is that Nintendo 64 games can be accessed through these things called ROMs, and they can be played through emulators on your PC. And if you play Super Mario 64 through a ROM on an emulator on a PC, that's how you can access the online.
Right.
So it's not like you can play online via your Nintendo 64.
Right.
So I remember just listening to that, I was like, wow, that was not very clear. So the story is that the Super Mario 64 online game that we talked about last week actually got Nintendo's attention in a very aggressive way, because this story comes from Polygon. You got it?
I'm taking down.
Just taking it down. Yep. Just screw it. So Nintendo made multiple copyright strikes against the well-known ROM hacker who revealed that he did the Super Mario 64 online. And then one of the copyright strikes actually took out his Patreon account, that's the biggest deal, because his Patreon account is what he uses for people to donate to him to create these mods.
Right.
And it's not just with Super Mario 64 online. And that's kind of the bigger deal, because they striked his Patreon account over the Super Mario 64, but that entails so much more.
Right.
So,
and how much was he making at the time?
I don't know if he posted it, because there's an option on Patreon where you can hide how much money you make a month, and I think it was the case for him. It doesn't say.
I'm sure
exactly.
It was hidden because he doesn't want Nintendo to know.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't want to know how much money he's making exactly off of the game. Yeah. So I don't know. What's your opinion on this? Do you think that Nintendo is in the right to do this?
I don't really think it's a matter of it's either. I think legally speaking, they have every right.
Yeah.
Because
especially with the Patreon, because if he's getting, I mean, regardless of their donations, you could technically make an argument that they're donating in order to access the game.
Right. And so, I mean, for Nintendo's sake, legally, yes, that was, I mean, they do have a right because he is making a shit ton of money off of everything that they own.
Yeah.
They built Mario, because with patent and trademarks and copyrighted material, at some point you have to say, listen, I did all the fucking work.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the one who made this platform, and you're just adding on to it, but you're making a shit ton of money off of it. That you can't just do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it exists. So I get it, but I feel like they could have handled it a little bit better for the public eye and said, maybe they reach out to him and say, hey, you know damn well that we're going to hit you for a trademark lawsuit. Let's work together.
Yeah.
Why don't we'll take our cut. You've already put the work in. Okay, we'll split it. And you're just going to basically we're going to license, because that's what something like Chick-fil-A might do. They might say, okay, you want to open up your own Chick-fil-A? Sure. You can license our branding, our trademark, everything, all that. You can run it your own way, whatever. We'll just take a percentage of those profits. So if this developer just told them, hey, I'll give you 15% of all my earnings and I can just keep it the way it is. If you're Nintendo, why not?
Yeah.
Because that game, it's not like that game's brand new.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no incentive for you to be pissed about someone like making a brand new game. And it's not like it's Super Mario Odyssey.
Yeah.
Is it Mario Odyssey? I don't know.
Yeah, it's Super Mario Odyssey.
Okay, so if it was Odyssey, it'd be totally different.
Yeah.
This is an old game for the N64. The fact that people are willing to go through the lengths of getting these ROMs on your PC and knowing how to actually get these emulators and make them run, these people are not going to be the ones that are going to go out of their way to pay like $45 for it if Nintendo releases it, right?
Exactly.
Like, for them, it's like, I donate $1 to $10, $5, whatever on Patreon. I get my thing and I'm good to go. This is just like a gimmicky thing that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
And I think it's awesome, but that Nintendo there was middle ground to be had where I feel like then all of a sudden people are like, wow, that's pretty cool to Nintendo. Like they realized that this was extremely profitable. People wanted it and they didn't have to do any work.
Yeah.
They literally just had to say, hey, you used our shit. That's illegal, but we'll let it slide. How about we take some of the profits and you just keep doing your thing and we're good.
Yeah. It's almost like you could make a synopsis or a simile with producers and like how they sample tracks and sample old music, because there's definitely certain instances where because DJ Premier, one of our favorite producers, has brought this up multiple times, where there's certain artists which will be totally cool with you sampling their stuff, but it's like, man, I just love music and love spreading the feel of music, so use my stuff, and if you make it dope, sick. But then there's other people and other artists where they would get upset if you use their likeness in terms of making a beat or something. And you referenced how Nintendo could have done better with this situation. I agree, because maybe if they approached him and were like, hey, we don't want to take your whole Patreon page down because we're not going to like tear down and like infringe on creativity, because I mean, Patreon pretty much is the symbol of creativity.
Yeah, no shit.
Or it could be a symbol of creativity. So they could have said, all right, we're not going to take your Patreon page down, but just maybe pay us a fine or like a royalties, depending on how the math turned out. And maybe if they were to go so far as like, okay, just take down the ROM. Just like, okay, it was so super cool that you did, but we don't like that it's up there, that you're making money off of it, and that it gives this massive capability to do this. So just take it down, but we're not going to take down like your entire livelihood, pretty much.
Yeah, that it could have been handled differently, but I wouldn't be necessarily that mad at Nintendo, because this is the definition of copyright infringement.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I'm sorry, it just is.
Yeah,
it sucks. And that's really lame, but it's just kind of how it is.
Yeah, taking something and enhancing it and then making money off of it. Pretty much the saying of copyright infringement.
Right. It just sucks when it's a cool game and a cool concept.
Yeah.
Like I can
super
understand.
Creative.
I understand why people would be like, but it's so cool.
Yeah.
I get it. Trust me, I get it. But I don't know.
It's one of those things where it's like you understand and you can't really take a side, because I mean, how are you going to argue against Nintendo's point?
Yeah.
But it's just unfortunate for that guy.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah. So, and I just wanted to revisit that story. It wasn't really...
We just talked about it.
Yeah, because we just talked about it last week. It doesn't really have any ramifications for the gaming community, but like I said, we talked about it last week, so I just figured we revisit it since, I mean, it's only been a week and just this much has happened. So the second story of the week, our second and final story of the week, has to do with PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds in the news once again, but not necessarily for a good thing this week. So if you don't know, there's a game developed by Epic Games known as Fortnite, and they recently released a brand new Battle Royale mode, that's what they call it, for the game Fortnite, and they released kind of like a beta for it. And the term Battle Royale is key in this story because that is obviously, if you've ever played PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, otherwise known as PUBG, or heard about it, the Battle Royale concept is definitely like a staple point of the entire game. But PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds developer Bluehole, which is like kind of a subsidiary of Epic Games because the game engine that they use for PUBG, they license from Epic Games. Mm-hmm. So that's what kind of makes it interesting because technically these guys could be arguably on the same team almost, and yet they release a press release about this. And I'll read the press release. They said, "We have had an ongoing relationship with Epic Games throughout PUBG's development as they are the creators of Unreal Engine 4, which is the game engine that they license for the game." And then Bluehole's vice president goes on to say, because Bluehole's a South Korean company, which I didn't know. So that's pretty interesting that a company in South Korea developed this PUBG game, which has taken the gaming community by storm. They said, "After listening to growing feedback from our community and reviewing the gameplay for ourselves, we are concerned that Fortnite may be replicating the experience for which PUBG is known." And he kept going. We also noticed that Epic Games references PUBG in the promotion of Fortnite to their community and in communications with the press. This was never discussed with us, and we did not feel that it's right. There was one more part of the quote that I wanted. Oh, yeah. And then he says, "Close the press release with the ominous note that he and his company plan to contemplate further action." So, i.e., a lawsuit for a copyright infringement. And this was definitely talked about a lot in the gaming community this week because it kind of came out of nowhere. And especially because, like I said, they licensed the game engine from Epic Games. So there's been a partnership between these companies beforehand, before the new mode even came out. And it just gets really what I wanted to talk about with this story in general is that, do you think that an idea or a concept of a game, because I've seen gameplay of the Fortnite Battle Royale mode, and there's definitely certain aspects where it's like, okay, holy shit, that looks a lot like PUBG.
Yeah,
but then there's other things, because you can like build barriers and stuff and build boundaries and build forts in Fortnite's Battle Royale mode, and there's also like just there's fundamental aspects of the game that are different. Mm-hmm. So really the question I wanted to ask you is that, do you think that companies like PUBG with this Battle Royale mode, because that's what they reference in that press release, do you think that any company could have a right or a copyright like trademark on a gaming genre?
No, I don't, because it already exists. And I think a really easy example is, what's the difference between Overwatch and League of Legends?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the gameplay in general, you can like champions are different. You can't upgrade your characters, that sort of thing. Yeah, you're right. But the premise of the game, that genre, is I have an objective and I have to destroy that objective, or I have to like do that objective, and it's all team based. Mm-hmm. And we complete it as a team, and then we flip sides, blah blah blah. There's competitive mode. Like, that genre of game is the same. Real-time strategy games, Age of Empires, and like StarCraft, those are the same. Halo Wars, that's all the same. You build a base and you build your thing, and you attack other armies. It's like the core concept is the same. Mm-hmm. So games already exist in the same genre. I think PUBG is just a little bit knee-jerky because they're dominating everything right now.
Yeah.
And someone else is like, I'm getting in on this action.
Yeah.
And they're going to develop it. And to me, it's like, if you're PUBG, how the fuck did you not see that coming?
Yeah,
like,
right?
Everyone's going to start doing that.
Yeah, you're massively successful. That's what's going to happen.
And they weren't the first ones to do it.
No. They just, like the idea of Battle Royale is not new.
No. So I can understand. Like, again, it's one of those things where, you can understand when a game comes in and gets a little bit too close. You're like, this is pretty much the same thing. Mm-hmm. But to some extent, Fallout and Mass Effect, for a lot of the time, feel like the same game.
And I don't know if you ever heard of H1Z1 King of the Hill. But that was a previous mod on, I think the original game was called H1Z1, and they made like a King of the Hill mod where I've watched people play that. That shit is so identical to PUBG, and they based PUBG off of that game, and you could argue that there's way more similarities between H1Z1 King of the Hill and PUBG than PUBG and this new Fortnite game mode.
The only thing I can think of is because they already had a relationship, maybe this company had some information that only they knew, and they're picking up because they know where this is heading. Maybe, I don't know, but I just think we just talked about a perfect copyright infringement. It's using someone else's game, and doing an add-on for it and releasing it for free, essentially. Yeah. Well, not for free, but getting donations. So that's a copyright. But I'm gonna release a game, develop it completely, and the gameplay is similar. So the fuck what? Yeah. I mean, even Call of Duty has 3 different development studios. They're not ripping each other apart, saying like, "Oh, the games are like the same."
Yeah,
it's like
because they did that. Infinite Warfare would get shit out for copying Black Ops 3. In the multiplayer. Now, I mean, because I've learned to or listened to a lot of different perspectives about this story, and some people brought up some interesting points. One of which was to the point where how you would understand the logic behind this press release is that PUBG kind of wants, when they see these replications, because Grand Theft Auto did kind of like a Battle Royale replication too, where you parachute in, start with nothing, but it's on a much smaller scale, but they've implemented that into GTA Online. And one of the things why I would understand kind of this press release to an extent, although I don't agree with it entirely, was that maybe they wanted to just, if people saw Fortnite and maybe for some reason that's the first time they've seen that type of game mode, maybe just get it out there and say, hey, look, we're not necessarily condemning Fortnite for what they're doing, but just to let you know, we were the first one that did this. Yeah. Like, we were the first one to implement this and to master this type of game mode. So if you're interested in that, you should probably look into us because you might be interested in that. Yeah. But and then another sense of that is if other game developers, if there's, let's say this is the first one with a legit replication of this type of game mode, and Fortnite is on consoles and PUBG is not on consoles yet. It's coming to Xbox, only Xbox, not PlayStation yet, and they don't even have a release date for it yet. So you get a game like Fortnite that's on consoles that introduces a new game mode like this that's going to get to consoles first, regardless of when the release date of PUBG is. So from their perspective, maybe they're thinking, okay, we want to get the jump on consoles with this new idea and keep the sexiness and the attraction that PUBG has going when we transfer to consoles. So again, it goes into that fact of maybe we want to just get our name out there, say, hey, don't forget about us. We created this, and hopefully you'll still know that and play our game when it comes to consoles. Because if they can keep the popularity that PUBG is now when it gets to consoles, that game's going to scorch the earth. Yeah. And I understand, but to me, I'm just trying to think of a devil's advocate, and I just can't think of one. Yeah, I mean, I don't agree with it because I just feel like it's unneeded. Yeah. It's to the point where you're breaking all these records, you're massively successful. Why? And I had one person make an argument that was also another valid one, is that with this press release, you're almost legitimizing Fortnite's game mode to the point where if people are interested in PUBG, then they're like, oh, I guess if PUBG thinks it's pretty similar, then maybe I should give it a shot. I should go give it a shout. Yeah. I mean, what about Street Fighter, Tekken, Mortal Kombat, Injustice? You want to talk about a genre of game, especially when we talk about the newest Injustice and the newest Mortal Kombat. Aside from how the health bar works and the characters, that shit is identical. And the thing is, that's life. You come up with a really good idea and it makes a lot of money. People are gonna hop on and try and make it better. Yeah. The one caveat with those games is that they are made both by NetherRealm. So it's kind of like the same development studio, but still, I mean, there's different concepts. And Warner Brothers makes. Does Tekken make Injustice? Or no, Tekken's not the same developer. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you could make those. Because again, it's the same general idea. Obviously, the gameplay is different. That's how you set yourself apart. Yeah. So if you're PUBG, you don't sue somebody. You just go out there and you say, okay, this is how we're going to keep people playing PUBG, and this is why we're better than them. Yeah, exactly. Not, I'm going to throw a lawsuit because you made a game that's similar to us. Why wouldn't you do that? Yeah. If I knew how to do that, you bet your ass I'm going to. Yeah, exactly. You're making millions. It just comes off as for lack of a better phrase, unnecessarily salty. Yeah. It's just the legitimizing thing is, to me, is kind of the most compelling argument because coming out and saying this, it's you're beating them to a punch to the point where you want to get your idea out there and make sure people know that you were the first. But again, it just goes back to that legitimizing thing to the point where if you were someone who was curious about this new game mode and PUBG is adamant enough to come out and say, hey, we're the first to come up with this mode, play us before you play this, and you're like, hey, maybe if I, or someone like me especially who sucks at PUBG currently, maybe I'll come
give
to
it
this.
a shot.
Go to Fortnite and be like, hey, maybe I'll try this out. And that was another thing because I looked at H1Z1 and it kind of looks a little bit more cartoony, but it's still similar to PUBG. And I was thinking, hey, maybe I'll try this out. Maybe I'll be better at this than I am at PUBG.
Yeah, I think that's pretty weak. Grand Theft Auto and Saints Row.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, there's so many games that are similar.
Mm-hmm.
There's categories of games for a reason.
Yeah.
PES and FIFA.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably that's the most significant one for sure. Yeah, it's just, like I said, I mean, unnecessarily salty, and it almost seemed unneeded, where it was just forced.
Absolutely unneeded.
Yeah. So, yeah, PUBG in the news once again, but not for good things. So we'll move on to our topic of the show, and this is going to be a very interesting conversation.
Dun-dun-dun.
Because Call of Duty World War II released its most recent campaign trailer, and aside from...
Did you like it?
I did like it, and it's to the point where I've watched it numerous times, like I did the Game of Thrones season finale trailer. I don't know why. It just amazes me the capabilities that games can go to at this day and age and make shit look so real, to the point where it legitimately looks like you're going to be playing a movie. But the reason why I wanted to bring up that trailer is that I won't put any spoilers in, aside from the fact that in the trailer, they foreshadow the idea that in this game, you're going to be coming in contact and dealing with ramifications or the situations of the Holocaust.
Specifically concentration camps.
Yeah, exactly.
To make it very specific.
Yeah. Without getting into too many spoilers, there's just this little scene. Well, spoilers before you watch the trailer.
I mean, you're not going to spoil
a trailer. Yeah, you're right. So there's this scene where they're lined up, the soldiers are lined up outside of these trains, and the German commanding officer asks, which one of you are Jews in German, and one of the American soldiers is saying to drop his dog tags because they're looking for Jews, and the German guy points out a Jew and then hits him like in the head with his gun, and they put him on the train, and the train thing is where it's the biggest. I mean, you mentioned when you deal with World War II, and you mentioned anything to do with the Jewish people, I mean, it has to do with the Holocaust, so you didn't even have to put in the train to get that feeling of how they're going to address that in the game, but then he gets put on the train, and then there's like this dramatic sequence where they talk about how they want to do everything to get their men back and stuff like that. And we've referenced Modern Warfare 2, their dramatic scene, because the idea behind this topic of the show that I wanted to get into is dealing with traumatic events, whether they be real or fictional, especially fictional in terms of Modern Warfare 2, but dealing with these very real events that are significantly traumatic. Because if you haven't played Modern Warfare 2, there's a mission where it's called a mission called No Russian, and you go with this terrorist leader as a part of this Russian group, and basically you go up in this elevator and pop up in this airport that's massively populated with innocent people, and the game basically gives you a gun and gives you a choice whether you can mow down all these innocent people or not. Yeah. And then there's another scene in Modern Warfare 3 where there's a cutscene and they have this other terrorist attack where this truck full of like toxic gas pulls up next to this family that's on like a home video on this fun family vacation, and a little kid and a dad go up next to the truck and get ready to take a picture, and the truck explodes and chaos ensues there. So there's multiple, I mean, all three of these situations that we could come up with are all Call of Duty. Yeah. So it's definitely a common theme that they like to push.
Those are the most common because it's such a huge game. Yeah. But there's other games that are more controversial.
Yeah.
For sure.
True. Because, I mean, Wolfenstein in general, the whole idea of what if the Nazis won the war, I mean, that's a pretty big controversial stance. So pretty much what I wanted to get into as the topic of the show is that what we think about certain games addressing dramatic events or traumatic events like this, like the Holocaust or like a massacre inside of an airport. So what do you think?
I mean, first and foremost, no matter what, you're going to offend people.
Oh, yeah.
There's just no way around it, and it's just going to happen. The question is it worth it? Mm-hmm. Because someone who survived the Holocaust is probably like, why is this going to be a video game? Yeah. Like, this isn't fun. Mm-hmm. This isn't, you shouldn't enjoy it. Mm-hmm. Why? Because the concepts of video games are supposed to be, this is my extracurricular, have fun, entertain myself. So there is a dynamic of, okay, this shouldn't be a thing that you play through. You should respect the people that died. And I get that. And I also understand that on the flip side, you can also educate people about it and say, hey, like these things happened. This is exactly what went down. And it is kind of a way of respecting it because it's like you're going to learn about what happened and you might not have.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get done, you kind of reflect on it. To me, though, for video games, at some point, I'm just kind of like, as a parent or as a kid, as whoever you are, you kind of just have to come with it and be like, it's a video game.
Yeah.
It's just, it is a real event, but a video game is a video game. It's make believe.
And they're not, and I mean, as far as I know, they're not portraying real people in this Holocaust situation.
And whether they did or not wouldn't really matter to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that would change it. I think we both agree that I think this should be the most controversial as opposed to a theoretical event.
Yeah,
because like
absolutely.
the MW2 event is probably technically more controversial because of what you do. But to me, it's like it's way worse when it's a real event as opposed to, oh, you just made a level up.
Yeah.
Because there's other games like something like Hatred where you're just a dude who the entire game is mowing down innocent people as much as you can. And
the more brutal you are, the better you do.
Exactly. And I mean, there's a laundry list of games that have sparked controversy, but I can't think of one where it's a real life event that you go through, and especially something as powerful as the Holocaust.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you want to talk about asking anyone in the U.S. what's the darkest time in our country's history? Slavery would be up there, World War II would be up there, and the Civil War would be up there, probably. In no specific order.
Yeah.
Well, World War I as well. But for a lot of us, World War II would probably be number one because we still know people alive that fought in it.
And it's not even like our country in particular, the darkest time of like mankind.
Yeah,
together.
exactly. And when you watch documentaries, especially something like a show like Band of Brothers or something like that, when they get to the Holocaust part, because Band of Brothers showed it, you don't relive. You see for the first time for someone that wasn't a survivor what it must have felt like for a soldier who had you heard rumors, but you didn't know it was true or not.
Yeah.
Then they discover that kind of feeling of just like, what is going on?
Mm-hmm.
Because nowadays it seems absolutely preposterous. It seems something like there's a lot of shitty things that go on in the world, of course, but the idea of I'm going to go be a soldier and I discover basically a giant cage full of people, and then you find out that 6 million people died just because they were Jewish, essentially. Mm-hmm. Well, it was what?
Jewish
blacks, people,
gays.
blacks, gays, gypsies.
Yeah.
I mean, anyone that wasn't
blonde,
Aryan.
White, blue, Aryan, German.
So I think when you put that in a video game, it's not like a video game's gonna make it fun and happy.
Yeah.
It's just,
and I don't think that's what it's about either.
No, not at all. And the thing is, we've said this, the whole game it's pretty fucking intense.
Yeah.
Now, everything, the campaign is very, very, it does look like a movie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It looks like a movie, and it feels like you're going to go through some shit.
Yeah.
And you go through the Holocaust scene, and it's very dark, and it's very intense. And then you look at Nazi zombies, and Nazi zombies, again, is supposed to be a blast. That shit
looks terrifying.
Yeah,
very, very dark.
It is very, very intense. So I think that as I can understand why people would say, oh, you're going to put the Holocaust in a video game? Why? What's the goal? What's the point? But to me, it's like as a consumer who can reflect more maturely on the events that happened, it's not like I'm going to enjoy playing the Holocaust, or it's not like I enjoy shooting people, but it's the whole encompassing. A studio put forth this beautiful piece of work that you can relive history, even though it's fake.
Yeah,
and you get to me, I have a better appreciation for events when it's like, I'm not reading a book, I'm not watching a movie, I'm not watching a show, I'm controlling things, and you kind of, I mean, in a video game, you put your head on your character or whoever at some point. Everyone does.
Yeah.
And then you start to think, holy shit, man, is this what this is really like?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And you talk about education. I think that is my biggest proponent of supporting a developer studio doing something like this. Because when you talk about the Holocaust, and I think it goes into play with how video games are in general. Because I remember talking to my dad, who is obviously part of the older generation, and he didn't agree with it because when I think we saw the trailer, or maybe we were just talking about it and like he overheard it or something, and we got into the conversation, he disagreed with it. But I just like brought up the point of when older generations and maybe some people who don't play video games at all think of video games, I feel like they think of them in this light where it's not like the most sophisticated technology, like you think of pixels,
in
like
arcade.
20-bit, exactly, arcade games. But my point is that if you're able to develop a game that's this ridiculously high quality and this good to the point where you feel like you're playing a movie, it can be used as a learning experience. Because like you said, if you learn better by not reading in a textbook or not even watching a movie, but getting it hands-on, maybe that could be the best way to learn about anything as opposed to the Holocaust.
Right. And to kind of piggyback off that thought, what really is the difference between a video game and a movie?
Yeah,
to me,
because you're still portraying it in a dramatic, like in a dramatization.
And so, and like, because you bring up a good point, because when someone hears video game, like I was trying to allude to earlier, they think it's fun, happy, like having a blast. And some video games are not,
no,
at all. And I do think it's kind of that it's that mindset of, oh, you're playing a video game, it's Mario, it's blah blah blah. It's not this, 8K resolution, 30 F whatever highest like frame per second you can get. Piece of art that is almost a movie. And to me, it's like, okay, well then at that point, so then why can we make movies about the Holocaust and not video games? It's both forms of consumable entertainment that you're going out of your way in your free time to consume. And again, you watch something like the Boy in the Striped Pajamas. It's not a happy movie.
No.
It's god-awful sad, but it's a great movie. And people watch it because it makes you appreciate what you'll never know, but it's almost, you sit there and you're like, God damn, I don't know. I really don't know what it must have been like to live in that time. We'll never go back there.
And in terms of like the developers, when you talk about Activision and Sledgehammer Games is developing this Call of Duty in particular, when you want to put yourself on the map, okay, I mean, because we talk about how yearly installments are Call of Duty where they're kind of like cookie cutter of the same thing. You want to set yourself apart and put yourself on the map in terms of first-person shooters or just Call of Duty games in general. Then you go for a campaign that maybe is not all about explosions, like, oh, the good guys win all the time. No matter what happens, like the good guys are always coming out on top, the bad guys are going down, where you put yourself in this situation where, I mean, they prelude to the Holocaust, and like with the music and everything and how they formulate the trailer, they make it an emphasis that it's not something that they're just going to pass over. So I'm very curious to see how they do it. But it comes down to the fact of, if you're a development studio and you want to make a campaign that is compelling, that is gripping, because you talk about those movies that are not necessarily the happiest and kind of depressing, but it's to the point where it's not depressing where it's just like, oh, super sad, but it's depressing to the point where it makes you appreciate what happened and knowing what actually happened. So from that sense, if they develop a campaign that develops and envelops you as a viewer to the point where you're playing this campaign, where you're just ensued with it, because we talked about with Last of Us how it's one of my favorite campaigns ever. That is, I mean, there's bright spots and happy moments, but they always find a way to bring down that happiness, and give that just like that apocalyptic, the world is against us, and it's, I mean, The Last of Us, it has that name for a reason. And when games do that, and when they're able to do that, then it makes for a massively compelling game. So I think that they could generate, I mean, because let's be real, when this game comes out and everyone plays the campaign and they reference the Holocaust, like I'm sure they will, to what extent they will, I don't know, but it's going to make headlines. And it's going to generate publicity, and people are going to say that or see that and say, okay, everybody's talking about it, getting this mass publicity, so I got to give it a shot and see what it's all about. Because I'm curious to see, when you first start up the game, I wonder if they're going to put up that option like they did in NW2.
I was thinking this. I'm sure they will.
Like, if you don't know what we're talking about, when you started up Modern Warfare 2 for the first time, they ask you, there are offensive scenes in the campaign, in the middle of the campaign, would you like to skip them or would you like to not skip them?
And you skip the airport mission.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the mission that you would skip. But I'm sure they will in this scene, because I could picture, like, you go through a mission where you're like heading into German force or something, and then you run up on a Holocaust camp, and maybe it goes through one of those scenes where it doesn't even allow you to raise your gun, and it brings you like a super slow pace and it gives you kind of like a scenic tour. That would be that would be just epic.
Let me ask you a question. Would there be a line that you think that they could cross? We'll stay with this specifically, and then we can move on to like anything.
Yeah.
But because to me, like, what if you're the Nazi soldier?
Ooh, man. Yeah, because I think in terms
I don't think that's it.
Yeah, right.
But I'm just saying,
I
like,
agree.
for the hypothetical.
Yeah.
Would that be too far?
I think it would be in the sense of the kind of story and the kind of plot that you're trying to generate, because at the same time, because that was one of the questions when they initially announced World War II was, okay,
what side are you on?
Yeah, like, are you going to be able to play as an Axis power in the campaign?
Yeah,
because
a lot of people have said, they're like, we want to play a game where I can play as the Nazis.
Yeah,
because it's never been done before. And again, maybe that's another line where it's like, if you do that, is that too far?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a great point, because you make it when there's one thing whether you're on, like, if you're an online multiplayer and you're on the Nazi side or something, because like, you're just playing team deathmatch, you're just going against the opposite player. It wouldn't matter what team you're on.
Right.
There's no historical significance with that.
Right. You're different. You have different, like, band.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty much just different colors at that point. But you make up a good point where if they address that in a campaign where it's like almost like a flashback or a change sides type of thing, man, that would just be interesting I don't know.
That's rough, right? Because I'm trying to think in my head, because for me personally, I won't speak for you. I'd assume you're probably the same. I will never get offended by a game I'm playing.
Exactly.
So if I were on, I don't, like, it could literally be anything, and I'd be like, it's a video game, I don't fucking care. But that doesn't mean that if it offends someone else, I should be like, oh, yeah, I'm not fuck you, blah blah blah.
I'm not insensitive to it.
Yeah, it's like, if enough people came forward that were Holocaust survivors and were like, this is fucked up, I'd be like, okay, yeah, I get it.
I'm gonna have to side with them because I have no leg to stand on.
Yeah, and it's just I'm here to be the recipient of all information. I'm not gonna be the one that skips any scenes. I'm gonna play through the whole game, but that's just my personality. Other people have different perspectives and opinions, but I feel like I don't think that they're gonna be like, put you as a Nazi soldier. Yeah, I don't. I think if you're going for, like, kind of like publicity or like headlines or to kind of be unique, I think that is a little bit. That's just the wrong way of doing it. And that would generate bad press. Yeah. Well, I mean, and people will say, oh, like, no publicity is bad publicity. I think for them, though, in a business decision, they would lose money. Yeah. If they did something like that.
And especially like a franchise like Call of Duty, it's always good.
Spotlight is fucking, like, scolding on you.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're going to approach a new way to the point where you're going to have a more darker tone when it comes to the campaign, that's enough to set yourself apart from other Call of Duty games and kind of make a name for yourself in terms of that individual yearly installment. But they're by no means a company that would need to go that far in order to generate press.
Do you think there's any topics that would push it over the wall and you'd be like, fuck that, this game shouldn't even be made?
Topic, you mean like
a subject line, like a campaign that was a revol? I mean, because the thing is, I don't want to get my head all twisted and give out some, like, crazy ridiculous. There's stuff I'm sure that if someone put it on a screen, I would not play it because I'd be like, this is fucking disgusting. Yeah, exactly. I'm sure, because there's disgusting things in the world that happen, and I don't want to be a part of it in any facet. Yeah. Okay, but for a developer to actually go through with a game, I can't think of a single game on top of my head where I would play it and be like, yeah, this is a little bit too far for me.
Because my thing is, and this is, I mean, out of the realm of my general appreciation for video games, because we play so much that when you play these games this much, and especially these new games, you appreciate them as pieces of art. Right. And if you don't look at video games as pieces of art, then grab Uncharted, grab The Last of Us, grab Metal Gear Solid, and play that shit even for 2 hours and tell me that is not a ridiculously exceptional piece of art. But it goes back to the point of, and I've heard the developers talk about this before, in particular talking about the darker set tone of Call of Duty World War II's campaign. They talked about how younger people play video games. I mean, that's a known thing. And in terms of how you want to teach, and maybe how do you want to make to the point where not only you're teaching this knowledge and these historical events, but to make it stick. Because if you're a student in high school or middle school and you're a big gamer and you're not necessarily interested in history, you're going to go to your history class, you're going to read out of the textbook, You're going to read about
You're gonna
Chinese.
pass your test.
Yeah, Chinese ancient history. You're going to read about a more
The
general
Silk Road.
yeah, more general idea of history, and you might obviously you'll jump on the World War II, but you may not understand it in its complexity and the depth that you need to. But you go and then you approach it with a video game where if you're that same high school student and you play it through a video game and you make it so real to the point where you're educating the person that's playing it on these events and you're just putting it in a different tone so they're able to better understand it. And most importantly, if they're playing it, maybe relate to it more so they can appreciate what actually happened. And that's my thing, is because of how much video games are now an art form and how ridiculously amazing the capabilities are that these developers have with these big budget games, that it's almost like if you're going to address an event like this, it's almost a disservice to not address that event. I mean, you could definitely make an argument for that.
Yeah, for sure. It's like,
because I'm also curious to see how they're going to address, which I told you before that the whole campaign is going to surround getting out of Normandy. That was wrong. That was just one other mission. But
thank God.
Yeah. But I'm curious to see also how they address D-Day, because if they make that a mission, not to mention how ridiculously intense that whole scene was.
That's been done before.
Has it in previous Call of Duties?
Well, I'm assuming, I can't remember Big Red 1, but I know Medal of Honor did it.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, that makes sense. But in terms of the Holocaust situation, that's definitely never been done. So, I mean, it's going to be super intense, but I honestly can't wait.
Also the nukes. I don't know. How, do you know how they reference it or?
Oh yeah. Oh, well, because I think it's just the conflict with Germany.
No, it is, but I wasn't sure if they have like a cutscene at the end.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because like if you beat the campaign, then do they? I mean, is that it?
Yeah.
Or do they have one of those things that says, do the credits with like little almost like what Band of Brothers does, where they do like a monologue that'll say,
that makes sense.
Then we dropped a nuclear bomb, dropped another one, Japan surrenders, we came home on X, Y, and Z, like that sort of thing. But I don't know.
They haven't referenced it at all. Like the developers haven't talked about it in the interviews or anything. So I think they're sticking to just the German conflict.
Gotcha.
But what was I gonna say? In terms of there was another scene that was pretty powerful and I think goes forth the tone that they were trying to set towards the end of the trailer, where it goes to this cutscene where it goes to a soldier and he's staring at this building that's just covered in Nazi flags, and like with the music, the intensity, and the shortness of the scene, they definitely put an emphasis on that dark tone, and it just goes back to the fact that I think it's good because it's a way of educating people that would otherwise not become interested in the subject matter whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean,
and there's always a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it.
Yeah.
But if there's any company that I was going to say, okay, what would be the one game that if they were going to do a World War II era game, who would you trust to do it right and to do it in such an immaculate art form to the point where they're benefiting that sort of like time era to the point where they're able to educate through their art form, it would be Activision and Call of Duty.
And I mean, for me, do I think it's good? No. Do I think it's bad? No. It's a video game.
Yeah.
I mean, when I play campaigns, even when they're like crazy messed up, it just doesn't have any. It doesn't hit me. It doesn't tug at my strings. It doesn't bring anything emotional. I play through. I don't give a fuck. In Fallout 4, if you know like the big plot twist in it, when that happened, I was like, okay.
You haven't played Last of Us yet.
I still need to shoot this guy. I'll just do that.
Yeah.
Then. I mean, I don't know. That doesn't invoke a lot in me. So there'll be groups that get pissed off and they'll protest it probably. And I get it, but the game's going to get released.
Yeah. It's going to make shitloads of money.
I would just encourage people that if you really feel that passionately and you're that pissed off or offended by it, I'd find a different outlook than just like I would sympathize with you. I would be sensitive to the fact that I don't know what it's like, but I would try and reach on. If I were in their shoes, I'd also try and reach on the other side and just see, hey, I understand that you guys aren't intentionally trying to be disrespectful or anything. This isn't meant to be a happy thing. Try and understand what a video game is in today's world as opposed to like Pong back in the day.
Exactly.
It's just way different.
And I think that's the biggest thing in terms of how this type of thing and how people or how games that reference this are reflected in society. It's that the generational thing, not understanding what the capabilities that video games have today. Because I referenced The Last of Us, and no other game to this day has made me physically cry on multiple times while I'm playing the story. So if any person that were to rag on video games or to not think video games were an art, if I were to pick you to one game, it would be The Last of Us, just because of everything that has to do with that game is so gripping and so emotionally, what's the word I'm looking for? Emotionally tiring or emotionally spending, that there's truly no other game experience like it. And I mean, it's a beaten dead horse at this point, but just the top off of this topic is that video games are an art form. There's a right way and wrong way to do it. But if you are able to successfully portray this to the point where it's not, like you said, it's not to the point where we're making fun and happy, you're going to have a great time. It's more about, you need to learn about this in this sense, because this is a best way for you to understand what actually happened.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest part of it is the appreciation of what happened, and to reflect on, this was, no matter if this is in video game form or not, this is the darkest time of mankind, and you need to understand the full complexity of it. Because you look at, okay, maybe someone knows about the Holocaust to the younger generations, but maybe they don't know about the enticing or the surrounding details that led to that, or the reason of it, or like whether it was the Nazi side or our side in terms of our perspective of it. When you're able to give all those other details and then reference the Holocaust, let's say in the middle of the campaign, that would give even more context and maybe gain even more of appreciation from someone.
It's possible.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to play through it, so.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely going to let you know what we think, and I personally can't wait.
Yeah, it'll be an intense game, that's for sure.
Yeah. And it's about time, because like we said before, all the games that in my top 5 are all like emotionally compelling and have like complex plot-driven stories like that as to do with their games and their campaigns. So I definitely can't wait, because it's about time that they do a dark setting. Because we've said it before that we like dark stuff. It's not because we like it and enjoy it. It's because we're interested in it, and it gets us emotionally invested.
And it gets you thinking.
Yeah, exactly. So it's definitely going to be an interesting game. If you have any opinions on controversial events in gaming, or if you think they're a bad thing, if you think you're a good thing,
or if you have an idea of what's too far.
Yeah, exactly. That would be another thing that I would be interested in. Or if you want to pick out maybe a controversial game or event in a game that we forgot to talk about and you want to reference it, let us know in the comment section below. Or as always, go to patreon.com/TJENT. Let us know. Donate $1, $2, $5, or $10. Post on that wall, and you get yourself on the show. So there you have it. There's Straight Gaming episode 4. We did our what we were playing. I'm playing Battlefield 1. Tom is still grinding on Destiny 2.
It'll be that way for a while, so.
Oh, yeah. And we did our stories of the week, and then we did our covered topic of the show where we referenced controversial events in video games. And we kind of brought up Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 3. We touched mostly on the Holocaust, but it was just kind of a general idea of controversial things in video games.
Yep.
So as always, let us know your opinions, and we'll definitely get yourself on the show, because this is one topic that I definitely have like an emotional opinion with it, and it's something that I'm passionate about, because I think it's my view on video games, but I just think it's really important for video games to take this stage and to know the type of power that they possess.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. So it was definitely an interesting topic. Thanks for joining everybody for Straight Gaming episode 4, and we will see you tomorrow for the first part of Real Talk with Tom and Joey episode 11. Thanks for joining everybody. We will see you next time.
Peace out.
Peace.